introduction to international business. So, now, according to you, what might be a business or what is a business? Now, the exchange of goods or services. Now, this exchange of goods or services in exchange to any other goods or services or in monetary terms is called as business. Now, this process of exchanging is taking place way back since the existence of human beings. Now, earlier, this system of exchanging goods for goods was being called as barter system. Now, under barter system, it adopted, exchange of communities, and this exchange was of those goods which were necessary for survival. For example, if Mr. A required wheat and he had some extra rice with him, and if he finds that Mr. B requires rice and has wheat with him in excess, then what used to happen was A used to exchange rice for wheat with Mr. B so that both of them were satisfied. Now it was in the beginning where there was no much of transportation facilities. But with the development of human beings, even the means and methods of production also developed, and it resulted in the overall trade development, and all these things led to the changes in the concept of exchange. That is to tell, people started moving from barter system because of its limitations, and gradually started accepting payment system. Now, under payment system, it developed and numerous things to mention were used as modes of exchange. For example, instead of goods for goods, they used to exchange livestock or shekel or cowrie shells, precious metals, coins, and also notes. And moving further, in today's days, it is all based on online exchanges. Now, we shall try to understand what is the meaning and concept of international business. Yes. Now, international business, in very simple words, can be defined as the exchange of goods and services among individuals and also among or between businesses that are situated in multiple countries. Now, if at all to mention one of the definition, we could go by the definition of business dictionary, which tells that international business firm can be defined as a specific entity such as a multinational corporation or international business company that engages in the business among multiple countries. So this international business or the nature of it is can be simply understood that there should be some corporation which would be working in its home country and also some other country. So, doing its business in other country or different other countries becomes important for international business. Now, international business is a term which is used to collectively describe all the business transactions. So here when we are mentioning regarding all business transaction or all commercial transaction, this transaction could be private, government, or both. The transaction could be in terms of sales, transaction could be in terms of investment, it could be in terms of logistics and also transportation. Now, all this commercial transaction that should take place between two or more regions, countries, and nations beyond their political boundaries. That is to tell, definitely when we speak about international business, there would be exchange or transaction among two countries, and also to mention in particular, it will go beyond the political boundaries and also the geographical boundaries. Now, usually it would be private companies which undertake all these kinds of transactions with the main aim of earning profit. Now, the government organization will also undertake such transaction with the aim of mainly political reasons and also sometimes for profit. Now, one more thing that we should remember is that this international business is not only beneficial for the business units but also it joins different countries through trade. I mean, it not only joins different countries through trade, but it also makes the countries dependent on each other. Now, when two countries or more countries are dependent on each other, it develops a kind or a sense of humility, or in simple words to tell, this dependency makes countries understand the need of each other. And also, as the population is increasing day by day, it is growing day by day, demand for the goods and services are also increasing, and this has resulted in widening the scope of international business. And it is also, now maybe to fulfill our basic needs, we all need or we require money. And on the other hand, all these industries need resources and consumers. Now, we need money, that is our problem. Industries needs resources and also consumers, that is problem from the side of industry. It is globalization which solves the problem of both. Now, if at all we observe the world's geography, we can perceive that the natural resources are unsymmetrical. Now, that is to tell, all the resources are not allocated to every country. And if a particular product is fabricated by a peculiar raw materials which can be obtained in only one country where the company is situated. Now, international trade turns out to be crucial for the survival of the company. Now, this international business, in the same way how we discussed that the barter system was present from the beginning days of humans, even this exchange of trade or international trade were also present from maybe very long time in history, or while studying history, we might have come across all such things where people from one country to one country used to move for, maybe selling precious material, precious stones or gold, or maybe sometimes even spices. But the amount of exchange might be less or limited compared to today. Nowadays, sitting at one place, we can order anything that we need, provided we have facility to order and to get it from one corner to another corner of the world. So, along with when you speak about international business, we can also mention how this online or internet facilities has helped in selling goods beyond the boundaries or beyond the geographical boundaries of any country it could be. Now, as we are speaking about international business, here there are four components on which every business can persist, and we as a business organization must decide whether to go international, or is it safe, or is it enough for us to stay domestic itself. Now the first one is internationalization of market presence. Now it is very crucial for a business, to comprehend that what are their limitations and constructive areas. That is to tell, it is difficult for them to understand whether they are able to, know their limitations, understand it, come up with a way where they could face all these challenges and yet go beyond their market and beyond their boundaries. Now, if at all an organization is able to do, then such business unit should definitely make their global presence. Now, business units should also have an understanding on their competitors, so they can have an exact idea of what they are facing, maybe in domestic country or when they go international. For that example, consider any company, maybe XY Limited company, which produces toothpaste, and if at all the response for their product is very impressive and they can also tap similar market in other countries, then they should definitely tap the international market, and on the same time they should have an eye on their rivals who produce same type of product. The next one is internationalization of supply chain. Now this is also very important aspect from the point of view of internationalization. Now this particular point advises that a company should always try to select a production in its supply chain such that the cost of production should always be most minimal. Now, we should always remember that it is not at all mandatory, or it is not at all compulsory for any company to manufacture everything at a single place. No, that definitely is not there. Now, business entities or this organization should select a location such that when they include the raw material, transportation, and other things, they should be available easily for the organization. We can take example of Toyota for having one of the very good supply chain for itself. Now this Toyota company manufactures two-thirds of its cars in Japan and remaining 25% in subsidiaries, which is spread over 25 other countries. And also the company exports 35% of its car in foreign market. The next one is internationalization of capital base. Now when we tend to tell international of capital base, it refers to the extent to which any company has access to optimum source of capital on a world basis. Now, when we try to tell optimum capital in the sense that now whenever you try to bring in money for your organization, now capital in other words means money that which you would be using for doing the business and producing a goods or service. Okay, so bring in capital, it would have its own expenses. That is to tell, if at all trying to bring in money in the form of debt, you'll have to pay interest. If at all you think that for your company you will be issuing shares and thereby collect the money for the organization, you will have expenses in the form of raising capital. You will have many expenses. So all these things are together termed as cost of capital. So when we are trying to tell here optimum capital, it should mean that a capital wherein the company can get money in a very easy way, and the expenses that are included with that should be minimal. So that is the point where we can tell that a company has optimum capital. So when we go international and we are telling about capital base, every organization should understand from where they can get this optimum source of capital, and also what source of capital would be available to its business once after they go international. Now, this selection of going international will always depend upon the source and terms of finance that would be available in different countries. And the next one is internationalization of corporate mindset. Now, this particular factor tells how a company should diversify its organization. Now, for every business organization, it is important to understand that the culture of the country where the business is to be done should be followed and will always help the organization to grow and also develop its market in the country in which it is going to come, which ultimately gives monetary benefit and also helps in earning the trust of the market. For instance, we can take example wherein there might be an Indian company which has its own cultural background and which will definitely be different from that of Japanese company. Uh, to tell now, in every Indian company or most of the Indian company, you might have watched in a movie or in any of the clippings wherein senior management has their separate office and has a separate space, but in Japanese culture there are no separate office for a senior manager or the senior management. So this the the cross cultural difference should definitely be studied before going international. Now, it has also been observed that there are many companies fail in their establishment in other countries mainly due to the cultural differences. Now, we shall try to understand what is international business and what is domestic business. Now, as we discussed earlier, this international business is not at all a new phenomenon. It has existed since ages. Now, the trade among countries increased with the development of means of transportation and also with technological development. Now, in very simple words, internationalization is nothing but an expansion strategy. If we try to understand it clearly. Now, going global definitely benefits the supplier, the consumer, as well as the country. Now, for a supplier, he would be getting a fair price for their product. Now, as a consumer, they would get a better product and they will have different choices that they can make. And from the point of view of a country, it can always earn taxes which would be increasing the wealth of the country. Now, speaking about the difference, this difference primarily exists in terms of maybe the currencies and especially in terms of currencies, the interest rate that is there in two different countries, the inflation rate, and how the tax systems are there in two different countries, the government policies and regulations, and also in particular the language they speak, the culture that is being adopted, the geographic and also economic barriers. Now, these differences are the major concerns all multinational companies because their subsidiaries are located and will be located in different countries which will be having its own domestic business, and for this MNCs to grow they need to set such atmosphere or environment that underline both the culture. Now, speaking about these currencies or cultural atmosphere or the business environment, we should also note that the payment for goods and services which are sold to foreign buyers would definitely be in different currencies than which would be used in the domestic market. Now, for example, if India sells product A to a buyer who is in America, then the payment will definitely be made in a currency which is generally accepted in international market. It could be in dollars, yen, pound, euro, etc. Now, there is also this point that when we do such payments, this payment sometimes can suffer loss and also they are able to attract gains sometimes, and this happens due to the fluctuations in the conversion rate of the currencies or what we call as exchange rate. Now, for example, if at all a person from India sells a machine to a person in Japan, the payment has to be made in dollars. Okay, and if it is that the payment shall be made after 1 month, we have 2 point of time. Okay, the payment, I mean the date when the transaction has been made and the date when the payment would be made, and there shall definitely be differences in the rate of exchange when we compare these two dates. For that matter, at the time of transaction, maybe $1 was equal to rupees 65, but after 1 month, maybe it has declined to rupees 63. So when this happens, there shall be loss for the Indian seller of rupees 2 for every $1. And if at all the rate rises to 67, now the Indian seller will have 2 rupees profit for every dollar that is being exchanged. Now, except all these things, there are laws, policies, and also risk which plays an important role. Now, every country has its own laws. Now, those laws may be favorable or unfavorable to a business. For instance, now America has laws related to production of aluminum utensils in USA, and India has its own laws for the production of aluminum utensils in India. Now these two laws may be regarding the production of aluminum utensils in two countries, but definitely they are going to vary to a great extent. So establishment of business in both the countries will be different. Other than policies, interest rates, taxation, inflation rates will also vary to a great extent. Now, moving forward, we shall see growth of international business. Now, trade is a means to satisfy human needs, and this is for definite. Now, as the demand of the humans have increased, or in other words, complexed or intensified, the requirement for the expansion of trade was desired. Now, as the trade increased, national restrictions were necessary to be framed, and also using of a common currency for international business enabled business transaction to be carried out and creation of systematic law, and also the central market location and effective communication system definitely would help in smooth running of business, a central market, and also a systematic law helped in functioning of the marketplaces in a very smooth way, and also in decreasing the risk that is present in the international trade. Now, it was international trade which gave rise to what is called as foreign investment. And this foreign investment helped the countries to develop the business system. Now, investments not only expand the business but also they improve the condition of country as well as the citizens of the country. So there is one source from which we can get the information that the total global financial assets has increased from $250 billion in 1970 to almost $70 trillion in 2010. And also, the composition of international financial flows has changed, and also the share of portfolio equity investment is much larger. All these things are in terms of financial background, but what it means that whatever the money that was in international business, when we compare this 50 years or 40 years of time, it has increased from billion to trillion. Now, we should also remember that after the Second World War, Europe and the Japanese infrastructures were totally demolished, and it was that time when US companies through different strategies were able to strengthen their status. Now, there are different institutions which played important role in development of international trade in the long run. To mention some of them are, International Monetary Fund, which we term to tell as IMF, the World Bank, or the WTO, or the World Trade Organization. Now, all these different institutions you will have to study in detail in the coming chapters. Now, all these international organizations they provide, stability in worldwide environment of the business in which especially all these multinational corporations can conduct their business. So here what has been mentioned as chart 1 shows the increase in international business over past 50 years, and also we can observe how many folds there has been increase in the financial links and global trade. Now, international market is also an important aspect of international business. I'm trying to tell two different things. One is international market and one is international business. And you should always note the point that international marketing principles for different countries, or in very very simple terms, international business is a very big concept, and international marketing is one part of this international business. And when we try to tell about international marketing, it is mainly that how we are going to conduct marketing in different other countries wherein we would conduct our business. But international business includes everything. Might be understanding the environment, the inflation rates, the exchange rates, how we are going to get the funds, what are the rules, regulations, the culture, all this together makes international business. And we should also remember that nowadays every country and every industries For that matter, it might be a small industry or a big industry, they try to get global for two reasons mainly. One is growth and one is development. Now, what has been mentioned as chart 4 shows the share of gross domestic product of the advanced emerging economies and also the other developing economies. That is to tell, what is the gross domestic product that has increased due to this international trade. And you can see the trends that earlier in 1965, the gross domestic product of advanced countries was more, and emerging markets or developing countries had comparatively only almost 25%. And see the changes in the trend. And in 2005 to 14, the share of advanced economies has decreased to almost lesser than 20%, and the share of emerging market economies have increased. So thereby we can understand the importance of international market. And also nowadays India is inviting foreign investments in the country for the development of our domestic economy, and as well as we can see that the GDP of the country is increasing at a fast pace when we compare the history maybe from the beginning of the independence. Now, as the population of the country is very large and the number of jobs per person is very low, this industrialization and foreign FDIs in the country will give birth to new opportunities and exploration of new business possibilities. So, we shall try to understand what are the importance and advantages of international business. Now, as we discussed earlier, this international business is not only important for the business organization but also helps in the development of the country. Now, whenever a company decides to go international, it would be having two main reasons. Now, these two main reasons can be called as push factors and pull factors. Okay, to speak about the pull factor means attracting. Okay, pull factors are the factors which attracts the business units to the international market through the opportunities it has and also through the point of profitability that could be earned. Maybe the safety, maybe opportunity, stability, and freedom. Now, push factors refers to, or it is just the opposite of pull factors. Now, due to the problems that are there in the domestic market, the problems could be, saturation or increased in competition, the businesses would be forced to leave the country. So that could also be a reason for internationalization of business. But remember one thing, here push and pull are two different or opposite, but the result of both push factors and pull factors is only the internationalization of business. Now pull factors, you go to different countries because of the attractive opportunities that you have. Now the push factors, it forces you to go out or you leave the domestic market because of the problem you have here. Maybe the saturation of market. Now saturation of market simply means that whatever could be done and whatever share from the market you could get, you have taken it everything, and there shall be no more develop in the market share or increase in the market share for your production. Usually saturation stage would be the highest stage for any product, and from that point onwards it shall be the decline stage, if at all you remember your product life cycle that had been discussed. So now there are many other factors, like profits, foreign investment, growth opportunity, competition, government policy and regulation, expansion and future growth. All these factors we shall try to understand each one of them one by one in our coming session. So for this session we shall wind it up here. I would be taking your attendance and then you can leave the meeting. Okay. Thank you class for your patience listening, and you can leave the meeting for now.
Thank you, ma'am.